So we've now gone through 3 of the 5 questions. What's the nature of the 21st century world? Interdependence. Is it good or bad? It's both. What do we have to do? Move from interdependence to integrated communities of shared opportunities, shared responsibilities, and a genuine sense of belonging. It gets harder. 4, how in the wide world can we do that? What steps are necessary to achieve this transformation? Well, first, we do have to have a security policy. It's a dangerous world, and the forces of disintegration are at play against the forces of integration all over the world. You have to have a security policy to cope with terror and weapons of mass destruction, the slaughter of innocents in places like Darfur, the consequences of failed states, organized crime, trading in blood diamonds, all that stuff, as well as other security issues. Climate change is a security issue. Avian influenza is a security issue until we figure out exactly how to treat people quickly who have it. But security alone is never enough in an interdependent world for a very simple reason. It is never possible to kill, jail, or occupy all your adversaries. And if you live in an environment where you cannot kill, jail, or occupy all your adversaries, then you have to do diplomacy as much as you can. You have to do cooperation as much as you can. You have to build international organizations, and you must try to have a world with more partners and fewer enemies. And we got a fresh example not very long ago of the diplomacy argument when the United States, after years of being at loggerheads with North Korea over its nuclear program, announced a breakthrough, which was very much like the kinds of negotiations that I engaged in when I was president. It was important on its own merits and because the diplomacy worked. And it is always, always, always cheaper than going to war. And I'll give you a couple of other examples. Arguably the most successful military operation undertaken by the United States in Asia in the last 6 years was the humanitarian airlift in Indonesia after the tsunami. Former President Bush and I went there and tried to raise money, and then I agreed to work for the UN for 2 years to try to oversee the reconstruction effort. But I never will forget going into these little villages where people, I met a man who'd lost his wife and 7 kids and had 1 left. And I was in a tent city, and I met the man who was elected the chairman of the group of people who were living there. He was supposed to represent all of them, so he trundled around with me when I toured the camp with his wife and his beautiful boy. And I said to my interpreter, I said, I think this young boy is the single most beautiful child I've ever laid my eyes on. And the young woman said, yes, he's very beautiful. And before the tsunami, he had 9 brothers and sisters, and they're all gone. I say that because when these kids that survive, we're going through grief therapy, one of the things they do is draw things. And I saw the succession of their drawings right after, when they first start, typically they draw very dark things, storms and things. And then at the end of the process, they'll be drawing kid things. In the middle, they began to draw positive visions of what happened after the tsunami. And drawing after drawing after drawing were of American military helicopters dropping food, dropping medicine, dropping ropes where people would symbolically climb out of the water and be saved. Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim country. Before the tsunami, our approval rating there after Iraq was 30%. Bin Laden's approval was 58%. In a poll taken after the tsunami, our approval was 60% and his was 28%. Now, why? he did not do anything to them after the tsunami, but he did not do anything for them. And when you are flat up your back and your loved ones are dead and everything you have is gone and you have to begin again, all of a sudden building is more important than tearing down. And caring is more important than hate. And common humanity is more important than interesting differences. We even had a bump in Pakistan after the earthquake, in a very tough area of Pakistan because of the same sorts of things. And we know how to do this, by the way. The Millennium Development Goals call for a halving of serious poverty by 2015 in the world. And we can get rid of it. We know how to lift people's incomes. We know how to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria and build healthcare systems. We know how to get the 130 million kids in school who aren't in school. And the United States could do all that. We could pay our fair share of doing all that for somewhere between $25 and $30 billion more a year in targeted aid. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but we spent over $100 billion in Afghanistan and over $400 billion in Iraq, and we will have to spend, in my opinion, another $500 billion lifetime dealing with the consequences of all those who've already been wounded and devastated, and all the problems that we'll have to deal with almost no matter what path we take from here on out. So I say we need to focus more on building a world with more partners and fewer terrorists. So you have to have security, diplomacy, cooperation, partnership. And the fourth thing we have to do is engage in home improvement. And so does everyone else. I do a lot of work around the world now with my foundation, and one of the things that when I go into a developing country, I have to be asked. And then we agree on the plan. And we have standards to guarantee transparency, no corruption, and the building of systems to improve the way things are done. So in developing countries, if they don't have home improvement, then all the help others seek to give them will be diluted, if not totally undermined. And in developed countries, wealthier countries, if we don't have continuous home improvement, our own citizens will wonder what we're thinking about other people for when we're not taking care of our own. So if you look at the United States, for example, we have severely dysfunctional health and energy usage systems, both of which are playing into a serious growth in inequality in our economy. We just finished 5 years where we had 5 years of economic growth, 5 years of productivity growth among working people, a 40-year high in corporate profits, and yet median wages, not average, but median, are flat to declining. The number of poor working families without health insurance went up by 4%. And nothing like this had ever happened quite like that before. But the globalized economy has kept pressure on median wages for quite a long while, which is why it's so important for you to be here. Median wages were flat from 1973 through my first term. Then my second term, we got enough good new jobs that wages started rising and inequality started declining again. And then when I left and we went back to trickle-down economics, the inequality was undertaken with a vengeance. But it's a serious problem. And you can't deal with the economics without dealing with the health care, without dealing with the energy, if you want to deal with all these things at once. So maybe we'll have some questions about that. I could keep you here till tomorrow morning talking about any of the three, but the point is we have to do that. Okay, so that's the fourth question. How do we move from interdependence to integration? With security, diplomacy, institutional cooperation, a policy to make more partners and fewer enemies, and relentless home improvement.